Welcome to Sleep Geography, a gentle corner of the world where maps turn into dreams and distance softens into comfort. I'm glad you're here. Take a moment to settle in. Let your shoulders drop and let your breath find a quiet, steady rhythm. Make yourself cozy. Dim the lights, fluff your pillows, and allow your eyes to rest. If you'd like, tell us in the comments where in the world you're listening from. Your place on the map becomes part of our shared night sky. Tonight, our minds will drift to a land of sun-warmed stone and the gentle scent of lemon groves, where hills slope toward a shining sea and every breeze feels kind. We'll travel slowly, with soft attention, and let the landscape carry us towards sleep. If these journeys soothe you, consider subscribing so that new voyages find you when you're ready to rest. Your restful presence here helps this quiet little atlas grow. When you're comfortable and your breath is unhurried, we'll begin. Let us drift to Italy. You arrive as if on a hush of air, high above the wide, calm blue of the Mediterranean. The world opens like a map, and the shape of a peninsula leans into the sea with quiet grace. You feel suspended in a warm and generous light. You look down and see rolling, sun-drenched hills meeting a deep blue sea. The meeting is gentle, like a hand resting on another hand. The line between land and water is soft and luminous, touched by light and time. The air itself feels kind. You notice the faint sweet scent of wild herbs and salt carried on a warm breeze. It gathers around you like a shawl, and you breathe a little deeper, as if the landscape is already inside you. The light is steady and patient. It is the warm, golden quality of the late afternoon light, a light that makes every surface glow without hurry. Roofs, cliffs and fields receive it like an old friend, and the sea sends it back in a slow, silvery shimmer. From this gentle height, the coastline curves and curves again, making bays that cup the water. Cliffs fall in soft, pale steps toward coves of quiet turquoise. Small beaches lie curled like commas at the base of the headlands. The hills seem to roll in waves beneath you, patterned with olive groves and vines. Rows of cypress mark distances like measured breaths. Stone farmhouses sit at the ends of lanes, their walls the colour of warm bread. You pause over a cape where terraces climb from sea to sky. Lemon trees hold small suns in their leaves. The breeze passes through them, and though you cannot touch the fruit, you feel its brightness in your chest. To the north, a long silver edge appears, the rim of high mountains where the world grows still. Peaks rise with quiet dignity, their whiteness both cool and serene. They look like a memory of winter, kept for balance against all this gold. Beyond the high rim are lakes shaped like leaves left on the earth. Their surfaces are calm and dark, holding the sky in their careful hands. Villages sit along the shores, and the reflections of roofs and trees are as soft as thoughts. Farther south, the land spreads into a broad, fertile plain. Rivers loop across it like strands of silk laid in gentle curves. Canals and fields make a patient pattern, and the light rests on the water with a tender hand. A spine of mountains runs down the centre of the land, a soft procession of ridges and passes. The slopes are furred with forests and held by stone. In the valleys you sense small towns, each a cluster of roofs turning their faces to the light. You drift toward a province of amber fields and measured rows. The Tuscan hills rise and fall like a breath, and the earth shows its warm colours through the stubble and vines. Cypress lines walk toward the horizon like quiet thoughts. Farmhouses sit squarely on the crests, with courtyards open to the sun. A low wall, a small well, a line of tools waiting beneath a roof. You do not hear them, but you know the day moves gently there, measured by light and shade. On another slope, olives spread their silver-green leaves in a soft shimmer. The trees are old and wide at the base, calm guardians of the hillside. Their shadows are small boats set upon the grass. In the distance, a river slides slowly through a city of stone, as if it had always been there. Bridges cross it in gracious arcs. The water holds a long ribbon of light, and the city seems to breathe in time with the river's flow. Your eye follows the coastline west into bays where cliffs stand like pages of an old book. The colour of the sea deepens, becoming a tapestry of blues. Boats move like quiet thoughts, leaving soft wakes that brighten and settle. Where the shore turns south, the light grows even sweeter. Terraces step down steep slopes in patient lines, carrying vines, lemons, and small gardens. Houses are the colours of seashells, their windows open to the easy air. The path of the sea carries you along Amalfi's high road, though you remain high above it all. Between headlands you glimpse views that seem painted, each one held for a heartbeat, then offered to the next. You feel the world opening and welcoming at once. The scent of the breeze gathers rosemary, thyme, and a little mint from the terraces. It carries a hint of sweetness from fruit warmed by stone. Salt lingers at the edges, clean and bright. You cross a broad bay where the water lies like silk spread on a table. The city on its fringe is a shimmer of pale walls and gardens. Faintly, you imagine the distant rhythm of a day that has slowed, a city bathing in late light. Beyond, the coastline straightens and softens into long stretches of sand. Pines lean toward the water, and their trunks are deep and steady. The beach holds the sun in its grains, and the sea answers with an easy sigh. You drift east across another sea, and the heel of the land draws a gentle arc. Olive trees extend in silver waves across red earth. White stone houses appear now and then with roofs that curve like gentle shells. The Adriatic is a long mirror, its colour shifting with the sky. You trace the coast like a fingertip along a page, noting small ports tucked into the curve of each bay. The light pools in the harbours and moves outward in slow bands. Across the inland hills, towns sit like beads on hilltops, each one gathered tight around a tower. Their streets spiral, and their walls shine with the gold of the hour. Fields below them are a patchwork of wheat, vines, and new planted rows. Toward the centre, the mountains breathe again, rolling forward with a quiet rhythm. Meadows open among the ridges, green as a calm thought. A shepherd's track curves across the slope, unhurried and true. You catch sight of a lake like a dark eye set in the hills. Its shore is simple, edged with reeds that sway in the light. Houses keep a respectful distance, leaving the water room to rest. When you look west, the sun lowers a little more, and the shadows grow long and kind. Roofs glimmer, and stone takes on the warmth of honey. The edges of things soften, as if the whole country is exhaling. Far to the west, the islands wait in quiet arcs. Sardinia rests with a deep old stillness, its shores pale and clear. A fragrance of myrtle and pine seems to lift from its coves, the sea a sheet of blue glass around it. Sicily is a great open hand placed upon the water. Inland, a high, dusky cone watches over fields and orchards. Lemon and orange groves stitch green and gold across the lower slopes, and the coasts are trimmed with small towns like pearls. Between the islands, the sea is a vellum of wind and light. You sense slow ferries passing, gentle as moving rooms. The wake brightens behind them and then falls back into the broader calm. You hover over the straits and feel the current's calm insistence. The shores draw close, then ease apart, like two breaths in conversation. In the soft light, the water is all patience, all clarity. Returning to the mainland, you follow the Tyrrhenian edge north. The Ligurian coast curves like a green shoulder, and terraced hills climb straight from the sea. Houses in pinks and yellows cling to the rock as if pleased to be there. You're high enough to see entire valleys opening toward the water. Through each one, a river guides your eye from the hills to the shore. The river mouths form small fans of sand, pale shapes where land and sea meet in a graceful exchange. Across the broad north, fields are drawn in quiet geometry. Lines of trees chart lanes and edges, dark against light earth. The sun places a thin gold seam along every row and roof. You notice how the country holds many worlds at once. Snowlight and sea light, stone and leaf, cities made of courtyards and alleys, fields made of lines and seasons. Each part is separate and also part of a single breath. The late afternoon deepens, but it does not hurry. A warm veil seems to settle over the landscape, the kind that softens voices and slows footsteps. The sky gathers the day in its wide hands. From this height, sound becomes a gentle idea. You imagine the low wash of water on stones, the distant murmur of leaves, a bell lifting the hour into the air and letting it rest there. Nothing presses. Everything is ease. You float over a city woven with canals, its pavements like threads between quiet sheets of water. Boats move without rush, and the facades wear their light with pride. Water holds the colours and returns them to the sky. The rivers of the land stitch it together with silver thread. The Arno, the Tiber, others less sung, each shoulders its way softly through stone and reed. Bridges rise and fall in calm arcs, like breaths taken across time. You return to the hills, where orchards and vineyards slope toward farm roads. The rows flow with the curve of the land, as if planted by a hand that listened. Nothing fights the field. Everything follows the lay of earth and light. The scent of herbs returns, joined by a breath of pine and laurel. It is the same quiet fragrance you met at first, warm and welcoming, salt at the edges. You carry it with you now, the way a pocket holds a found leaf. You trace the coastline where cliffs and caves play with the light. Each inlet is a cupped palm, holding a detail of the day. A sun-warmed stone, a garden gate, a small patch of sand where the sea writes and rewrites the same soft line. Roof tiles everywhere are the colour of baked clay. They hold the day's gold and let it go slowly. Courtyards open like rooms in the open air, with vines crossing from wall to wall like remembered songs. You marvel at how the land and water speak the same language of curve and rest. The peninsula leans into the sea leans back. The horizon is a seam that holds them together without effort. From the Alps to the islands, from rivers to terraces, the whole of it feels ancient and tender. Roads follow old paths and cross newer ones, always respectful of slope and sky. Stone takes light. Water returns it. You float over a meadow high in the spine of the land. Wildflowers are small lights in the grass, and the breeze lays patterns in the blades. A shepherd's shelter sits low and sure, turned toward the valley as if listening. A monastery appears on a ridge, simple and square. Its walls are pale, its roof grounded. You do not enter. You pass slowly, and the sight of it steadies you, like a hand on your shoulder. As the sun leans, the seas deepen. The deep blue becomes richer, layered, and calm. The plains of the land become gentler, and all bright edges soften into a kind of glow. On another coast, chalk-like cliffs hold small villages close. Olive trees spill over the walls, making shade that drifts across terraces with the slow arc of the day. Somewhere a dog lies in a doorway, asleep in the gentle heat. You notice the colours that hold this place together: ochre and umber in the earth, terracotta warming under the sun, olive green in leaves, cypress darkening to near black in the golden hour, cobalt in the far water, turquoise in the coves. You release any last tension into this palette, as if the colours know what to do with it. Your breath moves at the same pace as the shadow of a cloud crossing a field. You feel at home in a place you're only just arriving. In the distance, a promontory reaches toward a small island like a greeting. The water between them is calm and dark. The light gathers on the rim of the rock and lays a path across the surface. You follow a dusty road as it snakes along a ridge. It curves without hurry and disappears into a stand of trees. The spaces between trunks make columns of light, and the ground is dappled like a quiet thought. The land here seems to hum with a gentle, unbroken note. It is the sound of air moving through grass, of bees over time, of water taking its time over pebbles. Even the birds seem to draw their lines with a careful hand. You sweep back toward the heart of the country. Hills are folded handkerchiefs laid one over another. Valleys hold their shade like cool water, and the sun drapes itself across the heights with affection. A church on a hill wears the last bright ribbon of the day. Its shadow stretches across a field and then dissolves into the pattern of rows. Stone steps lead to a door that opens into peace. In another town, laundry hangs like flags of ordinary life between windows. The cloth takes the light as gently as skin. A cat stretches into the shade. Somewhere below, a fountain keeps its own steady rhythm. You let your gaze return to the sea, the great companion to all of this. From your height, it is both vast and intimate, a single body that touches every cove and stone. You feel its steadiness like a heartbeat under the day. The meeting of hill and water repeats along the coast, never the same, always familiar. In one place, the land slopes softly into a wide bay. In another, it stands in quiet cliffs, giving the sea a clean edge to polish. Here and there, fields of wheat hold the last gold as if reluctant to let it go. The heads bend slightly, answering to a breeze you can almost feel on your skin. The fragrance of straw and summer rises, light and kind. The peninsula reveals its length under your unhurried gaze. It is a path of seasons and flavours, of stone folded by time and warmed by sun. It feels like a long, open invitation. You notice how everything is arranged to welcome the light. Windows open to the west, chairs pulled to face the view, terraces built to catch the soft end of day. You become one more thing gathered by this glow. It is easy to rest in the certainty of this landscape. It has the calm of something that knows its own shape. Hills roll until they meet sea. Sea holds the line of shore. The sky makes room for both. You breathe in, and the air seems to carry a promise of sleep. Herbs, salt, and stone. A sweetness that is not sugar but light. Your shoulders forget they were ever lifted. The horizon widens, and you feel yourself widen with it. You're as tall as the mountains and as calm as the water. The curve of the coast is a line your eyes can follow without effort, and your mind follows it too. Above a small bay, vineyards fall in perfect lines down a slope. The rows look like notes on a staff, a song the land has written to itself. The tune is slow and confident, all rests and long-held tones. Near the cape, pines gather in umbrella shapes, green canopies held up by sturdy trunks. Their needles sift the light into gentle showers. The ground beneath is warm and smells faintly of resin and earth. You drift past a crescent beach where the sand is pale and fine. The water fades from clear to blue in slow gradients. Children have gone in for supper by now. The shore is a soft line, unbroken, waiting for evening. From the height of your vantage, you see that everything is in its place. Mountains keep their distance. Valleys offer passage. Towns sit where the land invites them, and the sea keeps making its quiet visit to the stones. The day holds its breath in a way that is not suspense but welcome. The world pauses so you can arrive. Your arrival is simple. You see, you breathe, you feel the country receiving you. As the light grows more golden still, even the shadows seem to shine. They have weight and softness, like velvet laid over a table. Roof edges glow. The undersides of leaves carry a tender green. You float above a headland where a path runs along the edge. The path is narrow and sure, worn by many feet that never needed to rush. At intervals, benches face the sea, each one a seat for quiet. You sense the day loosening, one knot at a time. Work is put away. Doors are propped open to let the evening in. The land lays down its tools and opens its hands. It is enough to be here, in the warm golden hour, with the faint sweet scent of wild herbs and salt carried on a warm breeze. It is enough to see hills roll and water rest. It is enough to feel your breath move like light over stone. You let the vista become a part of you, the way a lullaby becomes a part of evening. Hills, sea, sky, heat-softened roofs, lines of vines, the whole of Italy held in one unhurried glance. Above it all you are quiet and complete. The air is mild, the colours are kind, the land leans into the water leans back, and you lean into sleep's first gentle shore. You are still with the land, and it opens in new ways. The light is warm and exact, and the shapes grow clearer as you draw near. You feel every curve, edge, and surface invite your attention without asking for effort. You're back on a path above a sea that holds deep and patient blue. Cliffs stand in layered faces, pale and sure, as if the earth has lifted its quiet pages to the light. The rock descends cleanly, and the water receives it with calm. You watch the cliff show its textures. There are seams of lighter stone, thin and chalk bright, and bands of honey colour where time has laid a softer hand. Small caves open like steady breaths, and the ledges carry a measured scatter of thyme and caper. You are aware of the cliff's language. Edges are firm but worn, corners are rounded by air, and the broad planes catch light that pools and then releases. The whole face looks both ancient and just made, shaped by patience more than force. You step close to a low wall of dry stone that borders a terrace. Each stone is a separate thought, placed carefully beside another. The wall holds without mortar, sun-bleached and humble, and your fingers gather a soft powder of age from its surface. You notice the scents braided into the air. Salt settles at the edges of taste, and herbs lift their brightness into the warmth. The notes meet and balance, like two hands joined loosely without gripping. You are near a turn where the path tilts toward a sheltered cove. The sea leans into a curve of rock, and a small arc of pebbles rests at the base. The gradient of colour in the water shifts from pale glass to deep cobalt with an easy, certain fade. You pause beneath umbrella pines whose trunks rise straight from pale ground. Their crowns make rounded rooms of shade, and the light that filters through is green and kind. Resin on warm bark carries a gentle sweetness that lingers at the back of your breath. You run a hand along a slab of limestone warmed all day. The surface feels like a memory of sun held in stone, chalky at first and then smooth where fingers have passed. Tiny shells and fossils lie quiet in the grain, small evidence of time compressed into calm. You turn inland as cliffs soften into hills. The land relaxes into rolling shapes that repeat like even breathing. You feel your own pace take their rhythm, rising and easing in a steady exchange. You're among the hills of Tuscany, where slopes lean into one another with simple grace. Olive groves gather in tidy ranks, and vineyards trace the contours like lines written by a thoughtful hand. Fields lie in green, gold, and umber, each one a calm panel in a broad, warm tapestry. You step into an olive grove, and the light changes. Leaves flash silver underneath and deep green above, catching the air as if it were water. The shade is thin and soft, enough to cool the skin without dimming the day. You touch the bark of an old tree. It is ribbed and polished, knotted in slow spirals that feel like wood remembering wind. The scent is a light resin that makes space inside your chest. You're beside vines that run in gentle rows along a slope. Posts stand quietly at intervals, and wires hold a faint hum where the breeze passes. Leaves layer in overlapping planes, each catching light and making shade for the next. You crouch to touch the soil. It is warm and loose, a mixture of crumbly stone and clay that softens under your palm. Small shards of limestone reflect a steady brightness, like calm stars in daylight. You rise and follow a farm lane that curves around a hill's shoulder. Cypress stand in a measured procession, tall and narrow, dark against the pale sky. Their presence is simple and exact, a vertical answer to the land's long horizontal lines. You approach a farmhouse set on a low crest. Its walls are thick and sun-bleached, the colour of warm bread and dusted honey. Roof tiles hold the day's heat and release it slowly, so that the air near the eaves carries a gentle warmth. You lay your hand on the stone and feel the grain. It is slightly rough, evenly pitted, and warm enough to ease tension from your palm. In the mortar's fine lines, tiny grains of quartz glint like the last bright notes of the hour. You're in a soft valley where a quiet, clear river winds in broad bends. The water threads through meadows with patience, gathering sky into a long liquid ribbon. Gravel bars make pale crescents where the current slows and turns. You go down to the bank and kneel. Pebbles beneath the surface sit in simple colours: cream, grey, faint green, and the water edits them into gentler forms. Small fish hold their place, correcting with tiny movements that barely disturb the light. You are under willow and poplar along the river's edge. Leaves whisper in light touches, and the trunks wear smooth, pale bark. The shade is cool without being cold, like a calm hand resting over your shoulders. You touch the water and feel warmth above a steady seam of cool. The current moves around your fingers with respectful care and then continues. You sense the river as a long thought carried across the land. You rise and follow its curve until a single arch bridge crosses from meadow to meadow. Sun-bleached stones form a patient arc, fitted together with faith in weight and balance. The arch frames the river and the sky as if each were made for the other. You stand beneath the bridge where the air is still and gentle. Moisture holds to the stone just enough to cool it. The river keeps its even note and slides into its next bend, as if it were always meant to do so. You sit on a flat rock and let the valley settle into you. Grasses sway in measured lanes, and dragonflies draw thin, bright lines over the water. The banks give the river room to change its mind, and it changes slowly. You walk again, as the land rises into the first folds of the Apennines. Beech trunks lift in smooth grey columns that hold a ceiling of soft green. Light pours in sheets through leaves and falls over the path in a calm, repeating pattern. You touch the beech bark, cool and even. Your palm feels the faint texture like paper laid over stone. The forest holds a steady temperature, a breath that neither deepens nor thins. You pass a spring where water gathers out of the rock. It forms a clear bowl rimmed with sedge and moss, a small mirror that keeps a piece of sky. The surface trembles with a quiet that asks for nothing. You step out to a meadow on a high shoulder. Grass waves in long, even swells, and wildflowers hold small, certain colours, soft yellow, violet, and a calm blue. The ridgeline repeats across the distance, folded like a sleeping blanket. You turn toward the north where lakes rest in mountain basins. A stair of old stone descends into clear water. The upper steps keep warmth from the day while the lower ones carry a fine, steady cool. You look across a lake and watch mountains lean toward the surface. Forests run down their flanks and stop at the edge like a paused sentence. The water takes their reflection and smooths it into long bands of colour. You are close enough to see the water lift and settle in gentle breaths. A leaf drifts a long time without hurry. The colour deepens from pale green near the shore to a calm blue, out where the depth keeps its secrets kindly. You walk along a path of cobble at the lake's edge. Each stone is rounded and fits closely with its neighbours. The pattern underfoot is regular without being rigid, a comforting plainness that guides the step. You turn toward the Dolomites and the light shifts. Pale rock rises in bold shapes, clean and exact, as if the earth had sharpened its edges to catch the day. The faces are smooth in places, sudden in others, and all of it holds a fine chalk gleam. You notice the way rock and meadow converse here. Larch trees lift soft spires of green along the lower slopes, and patches of meadow lie neatly between shoulders of stone. The whole scene has an inviting clarity, like a page left open in kind light. You touch a block of dolomite at a trail side. The grain is smooth and bright, and small crystals glint like water standing still. Warmth resides in the surface and fades into coolness toward the core. You step through a meadow where bellflowers and gentians keep low, luminous blues. The grass carries its own quiet gloss, as if each blade remembers morning. A shallow stream knots and unknots its glass along small stones. You return to the plains and the land opens wide and even. Fields extend in calm geometry, edged by canals and lines of poplar. The horizon is a long, soft rule that steadies the eye. You walk a raised path between rice paddies reflecting the sky. The water is still and sure, and the shoots rise in careful stitches. The air holds a faint sweetness, and the light resolves itself into even squares on the surface. You follow a canal that runs toward a distant row of trees. Its water is dark and consistent, and grass leans toward it in a gentle fringe. The banks are kept simple, and the sky rides along its back without breaking. You turn east to a long lagoon sketched behind a barrier of sand. Narrow channels wind through salt marsh, and low islands hold grasses that dim and brighten with the hour. The water lies shallow and wide, a mirror made patient by distance. You stand where marsh and land meet. Mud holds a fine sheen that looks like metal softened by light. Reeds lift narrow blades into the air, and their quiet rustle carries a silver sound that feels like shade. You step along a sandbar where the grains are a balanced weight beneath your feet. The surface is warm, and a small depth cools the skin. Shells lie like soft punctuation marks in cream and pale rose. You're aware of the brackish sweetness in the air. Salt sits lightly on the tongue while wet grass anchors the scent in green. The whole place feels both open and sheltered, the sky near and wide. You move south along the Adriatic to white cliffs that rise abruptly from the water. The stone is clean and vertical, with ledges where juniper and rosemary find a foothold. The sea here is a deep turquoise near the face and darkens toward the horizon in a gentle, even gradient. You trail your hand along a sunlit shelf of chalky rock. It flakes lightly at the touch and leaves a soft dust on your skin. The texture is honest and simple, like something made to be held and then let go. You turn back toward the centre where the Apennines broaden. Chestnut trees take the slopes, their leaves long and glossy, and their shade cool and serene. The forest floor carries husks and soft leaf beds that hold the day with a calm hand. You lift your eyes to a ridge where grass and rock share the line. The sky sits easily on the crest without pressing. In the gullies, small streams appear and vanish, carrying the light in brief, clear threads. You continue to a high plateau where the land stretches in a quiet breath. Pastures lie open, and low stone walls stitch the distance in neat dashes. Wind moves across the grasses in broad, even strokes that feel like rest. You step onto a path of weathered cobble that follows a ridge. Each stone is rounded by time and place to hold. The line of the path is a gentle arc the land seems pleased to carry. You descend toward the Tyrrhenian coast where dunes move in soft shapes. Marram grass pins them with long roots and holds the sand in smooth, kind humps. Pine forests gather just inland, lifting umbrella crowns into stable, shady rooms. You listen to the pine shade without strain. The scent is resin and warm wood. The ground is cushioned with needles, and your footfalls feel like quiet agreements with the earth. You step onto a shore where the sand's colour deepens as it meets the water. The tide draws long, even lines, and the shore answers by smoothing them. The horizon rests as a level word. You cross the water in your mind and arrive on Sardinia, where granite meets the sea in rounded, friendly forms. The rock is pink and grey with a calm sparkle that holds the sun as if it belonged there. Juniper lines the coves, its twisted trunks shaped by a long patience. You touch the granite and feel how firm, how steady it is. Its surface is fine and grainy, and the heat it gives back is slow and honest. It feels like time that has learned to be gentle. You're wrapped in the scent of myrtle, cistus, and wild thyme. The maki knitting the slopes in soft pillows of green. Each shrub holds to the rock without strain. The air here is clean and salt-bright, with an herbal roundness that stays in the nose kindly. You move to Sicily, where the earth has a deep, dark colour underfoot. Basalt and ash make a soil that looks like velvet and behaves like generosity. Stone walls of black rock trace fields with a steady, unbroken logic. You walk a path made of lava stones laid flat. The pieces are smooth on top, their edges fine, their faces warmed by so many days of sun. Your steps feel certain, guided by a line that has long known how to hold weight. You enter an orchard where citrus trees hang their luminous circles. Leaves are thick and glossy, and the scent is bright without being sharp. The branches hold their geometry cleanly, each limb balanced to the other. You touch a lemon's cool skin, and feel dimples like soft punctuation under your finger. The tree gives a shade that is full yet clear. The air is sweet in a way that has nothing to do with sugar, and everything to do with light. You stand on a slope of cinder and pumice where the ground is airy and dark. It yields slightly, then holds, then yields again. Sparse grasses root into it, each green blade a gentle insistence in a wide black field. You turn inland to a high plateau in Calabria, where pines rise in measured stands and granite outcrops lift their weathered backs. Meadows open in quiet ovals between the trees. The air carries a light resin and a memory of salt from far valleys. You step to the edge of a bluff where the Ionian Sea lies far below. The cliffs here are muted and steadfast, not harsh but sure. Their faces are scored by rain and time, and in the lines you read a patient account of seasons passing without haste. You move into Basilicata, where slopes wear soft gullies called Calanchi. The hills fold into pale ribs and shallow bowls, carved by slow, careful water. The surfaces are dusty and clean, and the shapes repeat in a calm, steady grammar. You touch the fine powder of the slope and it coats your fingers with a thin, soft layer. The earth feels light and willing to travel, yet content where it is. Its colour is a quiet cream that holds the sun with ease. You're in Puglia now, where the land spreads low and broad under a wide sky. The soil is red with iron, warm and open. Olive trees stand with thick, confident trunks and broad arms that hold shade like a promise. You trail your hand along a dry stone wall, white against the red earth. The stones are fitted without hurry. Their faces are sun-bleached and simple, the edges soften to a calm agreement. You pass a cluster of conical roofs, each one stacked from pale stone. The shapes are clean and balanced, and the walls feel cool when you touch them. Light on white is a gentle thing in this air. It rests without glare. You return to a city shaped directly from rock, where tufa cliffs lift honey-coloured walls. Stairs are carved into the stone as if the land had decided to grow steps. Light lies along the faces and pools in doorways, and the shade smells like chalk and promise. You press your palm against the tufa. It gives a tiny amount and leaves a thin powder on your skin. Fossils are set in the grain like small quiet seeds, and the surface warms the hand while the body of the rock stays cool. You follow a narrow stair, and feel each tread settle comfortably underfoot. The corners are worn smooth where many hands have turned. Every line shortens the distance between earth and sky in a way that feels complete. You move toward Umbria, where hills gather and lean gently toward one another. The valleys hold rivers that move with clear minds, and fields rise and fall in calm breaths. Towns sit lightly on slopes, their stones the colour of wheat and soft light. You cross a field of loam that yields under your step and then lifts again. The soil is rich and even, a fine-textured bed that has learned to hold moisture and warmth in balance. Your feet feel accepted. You reach another river, smaller and bright. It turns around a meadow with perfect courtesy and slides beneath a pale bridge that watches without weight. A single reed trembles at the edge, marking the present as gently as a clock with no hands. You step to a wall where a lizard pauses in steady sun. The stone is pitted and warm, and a hairline crack draws a simple path across it. Your finger follows the line and a little dust rises, like a small, easy cloud of afternoon. You turn to the marches, where soft ridges run toward the Adriatic. Slopes are ribbed with fields of grain and vineyards, and patches of wood deep in the green. The hills fold and smooth, and the eye rests in the repetition. You walk a lane where hedges filter the light. Leaves move with measured grace, and let 100 small circles of sun touch the road. Birds adjust their perches as if tidying the day. You face west, and the Apennines deepen into blue. The ridges repeat, the far ones softened by air. Between them lie small lakes, meadows, and rooms of shade where the temperature holds steady and kind. You turn north to Liguria, where the land rises steeply from the sea. Terraces hold their ground in narrow shelves lined with olive, vine, and basil. The stone that backs them is slate dark, flat, and elegant underhand. You step along a path paved in thin slabs of slate. The stone is cool and dense in the shade, quick to warm in the sun. Its edges meet in clean lines, and the puzzle underfoot feels certain and wise. You crouch beside a patch of basil kept near a warm wall. The leaves hold a round, green scent, and the plant's shape is a tidy dome. The soil around it is dark and holds a faint gloss of moisture. You walk to a promontory where rock breaks into clean shelves. Pools gather in hollows, clear and glassy, holding tiny landscapes of pebble and light. The sea answers the stone in steady, even strokes that feel like a conversation about balance. You follow the coast to a cape where the water deepens to a steady blue-black. The The cliffs here show vertical seams and gentle faults, and light sits on them in narrow bands. Far below, the water braids pale lines along the base, and then smooths them away. You turn again to Latium, where round lakes rest in the bowls of quiet volcanoes. The shores are clean arcs, and the water holds a deep, measured blue. Pines gather on the rims and lean their green umbrellas toward the surface. You step on a beach of fine, dark sand at the edge of a crater lake. The grains are soft and warm on top, a coolness rising just below. Your footprints keep their shape long enough to feel seen, and then they soften into the general pattern of the shore. You walk among pale stones of travertine, their faces lightly veined and softly shining. The stone is cool in shade and carries a small retained warmth where sun has touched. A low wall of it feels smooth under your palm, as if water had taught it how to be kind. You pass broken columns resting as if content in their place. Grooves in their drums run in steady lines, and faint leaf patterns remain at the capitals. The detail is a whisper, a suggestion held and not insisted upon. You feel how the built world here meets the land respectfully. Stairs follow slope, walls shelter the easiest wind, and openings seek light. Everything human finds its posture in the earth's existing shape. You return to the coast where tufa cliffs are worked into shelves and cavities by time. The stone writes itself in layers, each one a line your eyes can read. Bird nests tuck into small pockets, and their presence is gentle and quiet. You kneel to study a face of stone, soft enough to accept a mark and strong enough to hold one. Time's script is visible but unhurried, small inscription within larger layers. Dust gathers in a fine bloom at your fingertip and then settles again. You wander into a field where wheat steadies in the warm hour. Heads tilt and lift like breathing. The colour is full honey, and the field moves in a single composed motion that returns to stillness in its own time. You're near a row of poplar that traces a farm road. White trunks stand straight, and leaves turn pale backs to the breeze with an easy flip. The line of trees draws a path for the eye, and the road walks it without fuss. You step onto an old ridge path set with rounded cobbles. Each stone has a slightly different colour, and together they make a soft mosaic. The pattern steadies the foot and the mind in equal measure. You drop into another valley, where a clear river repeats its perfect patience. It narrows, it widens, it rounds a gravel bar and touches reeds. Lace forms at the edges and then undoes itself without drama. You climb into a town where the street rises at a comfortable grade. Under your hand, the wall is rough at its edges and polished at its centre, and you understand how many palms have found this exact place. The difference in texture feels like a sentence with its own pause. You stop in a small square to notice the paving. Stones lie in even courses, catching light on their edges as if the day were threading a row of tiny stars. Gaps hold a small life of moss that softens hardness without contest. You go to a balcony of rock above an orchard and look down. Trees stand at easy angles on the slope, each one certain of its footing. Their shadows are precise and short, neat signatures laid on the grass. You run a hand along a parapet where lichen makes delicate circular maps. The pattern is pale and intricate, quiet embroidery on the stone. Dust takes to your skin in a way that feels friendly and brief. You feel the land's steadiness under everything. The earth does not hurry. It lifts and rests, bends and yields, repeats what works, and lets the light do the final refining. You follow a track between fields where water glides in narrow ditches. Reeds mark the corners, and wildflowers hold small, steady notes of colour. The track is firm underfoot, with edges soft and green. You move beside a hedgerow where blackberries deepen in late light. Leaves have a mature green, and the fruit gathers into calm shine. The stems hold small thorns, but nothing insists or interrupts. Everything simply is. You walk along a low wall that keeps its counsel. Lizards take the sun, small blooms find their gaps, and the stones hold their places. The wall is a line in the landscape that feels like a kind thought held over years. You look out across a basin of farms held by low, kind hills. The view is a bowl of light and labour shaped by relief and water. Clusters of trees mark the turns of land, each cluster an exhale. You stand beside a fig tree and watch its broad-lobed leaves cast clear shadows. The smell is green and milk-soft, and the bark is pale and smooth. The tree seems to know how to set its own calm pace. You collect the land's colours again and see how they sit together without argument. Ochre and umber in earth and shadow, terracotta warming in even light, olive, cypress, pine making layered greens, sky and sea trading blues in an easy conversation. You return to stone one more time and the touch is familiar. Sun-bleached blocks hold their heat and give it back in a measured, generous way. The grain is chalk fine yet steady, and your palm settles as if it had found a place to rest. You let the characteristics gather inside you. Craigs that plunge gently into clear water, not with menace but with confidence. Hills that roll like old ideas that have proved themselves. Rivers that move with a sure mind through valleys ready to receive them. You note how each shape makes room for the next. Cliff meets sea, and the line is clean. Hill meets plain, and the grade is kind. River meets field, and both are improved by the meeting. You feel the earth's warmth rise through your feet and into your chest. Soil, stone and leaf pass their steadiness into you, as if it were the most natural exchange in the world. The day settles around your shoulders like a well-worn shawl. You are steady in this quiet geography. The cliffs, the hills, the river, the sun-bleached stone, each speaks in a low, clear voice you now understand without translation. You are held by the lay of the land, and the land is warm. The land's soft lines remain beneath everything. Hills hold their breath. Terraces keep their gentle steps. Out of this quiet geography, human hands have shaped rooms for light to rest. A low-rise holds a sun-drenched villa, its walls the colour of warm bread. The facade is drawn with simple lines and shaded by a long loggia of arches. Columns lift a roof of clay tiles that store the day and release it slowly. You move through the gate, and a courtyard opens like a calm thought. Gravel gives way to stone paving warmed by the hour. A narrow fountain threads water to a shallow basin, where a lemon leaf touches the surface and makes a small circle of light. Vines climb the columns in measured spirals. Their shade is thin, softening the brightness without dimming it. Terracotta pots rim the walkway, each one shouldering rosemary or laurel. Inside, rooms are cool and patient. The ceiling beams are darkened by kind seasons. Plaster walls carry a faint bloom of lime and light, and at the corners, delicate borders of fresco, vine, bird, a slender ribbon, whisper of a hand that knew restraint. On one floor, a mosaic gathers the room together. Small tesserae, set piece by piece, form a field of leaves and waves. Stone and glass trade the day back and forth, turning small glints into a quiet surface. A long table sits near a window shaped for the breeze. You trail a hand along its smooth board and look past its edge to olives and sky. The villa seems to lean outward, listening closely to the land that raised it. In the kitchen, a wide hearth anchors one wall. The stone at the edge is worn by hands that have rested there between tasks. On a shelf, jars wait in a row. Terracotta shoulders, round and still, ready for oil or grain. The air holds simple notes. Wood, lemon rind, a hint of smoke that has become a memory rather than a presence. A wicker basket rests under the sill with a few almonds and a folded cloth. Everything appears made to serve long hours kindly. Along the loggia, fragments of painted plaster recall gardens when winter comes. A fig branch, a small bird at a window, a border of laurel, each detail measured, each colour quieted by time until it feels like the skin of a well-loved book. A door at the far side of the court leads to the work of the olive. Here, the press has its own room, cool and calm. A great round millstone sits on a pivot. It looks less like a tool than a planet waiting for its orbit. You picture the winter harvest arriving in low baskets. Nets spread below the trees for the fruit to fall into. Hands coaxing olives lightly. Combs drawing through leaves without haste. The grove gives its brightness. People gather it as if it were light made tangible. Olives become paste under the slow rotation of stone. The paste rests and moves, until droplets consider each other and begin to gather. A malaxa turns with a patient arm, and the mill seems to breathe with it. Fibre discs stack, each one absorbing and offering. Pressure comes down like a steady sentence. A thread of oil appears at last, green gold and sure, and runs along a shallow lip into a waiting bowl. The room receives it without ceremony. You imagine tasting the first pour, grassy, clean, a soft pepper warmth that wakes the mouth without asking. The oil settles in quiet amphory beneath a shelf of pale stone. Time does its gentle work. Brightness deepens. The year takes a new shape. Beyond the press, the vineyard keeps a parallel rhythm. Rows climb and descend with the hill, wood posts holding their lines without fuss. Leaves layer themselves into avenues of shade, and clusters hang like small lanterns waiting to be read. Harvest comes here as a calm conversation. Hands test a grape and know its readiness by feel and by memory. Grapes drop into bins and move toward the crush where skins and juice will part with respect. A wooden press waits for the first load. The slow lowering of the plate is not an act of force, but an agreement. Must flows in a clean stream. Seeds and skins remain aside. A new voice enters the room, sweet, fresh, and already thoughtful. Later, in the cellar, the air cools into oak and stone. Barrels breathe in long cycles, and the wine inside turns itself, making balance. You run a hand across a cask head and feel the curve of years. A chalk mark leaves a date, a grape, a quiet note only the family reads. A single lantern is enough light to check a colour, to raise a thief and taste, to allow a smile to spread without need of words. Bottles rest at an angle with cotton threads of dust, their labels written by a steady hand. Patience becomes substance. Culture grows here as gently as vines. In one room, mosaic returns in the making. Trays hold rows of tesserae by tone, limestone in creams, marble in greys, glass in sea blues, small squares of gold leaf folded into glass like a kept sun. You stand beside a table strewn with sketches and a drawn cartoon pinned at the corners. The artisan measures a curve with a finger, touches mortar with the trowel, then sets a piece. Just so. The work advances one square at a time, each one choosing the light it will carry. Patterns find their patience. A border of waves calls for alternating tones. A grape leaf curls in precise greens. Where gold appears, it is placed not to dazzle, but to warm the whole, a mild glow that hums in low light. Fresco breathes from the next studio. A pail holds slaked lime, another holds sand. On the wall, rough Arricchio waits beneath a new skin of intonico. This surface is still wet, a living time when pigment and plaster can become one. You watch a few tools at rest: brush, spoon, a small pounding bag for pouncing. The cartoon on paper has a trail of pinholes along a vine and tilted face. A hand lifts the pounce, dusts the pattern onto the plaster, and a pathway appears. Powdery, faint, enough. Colour arrives from earth and stone, ochre like soft grain, umber like tilled soil, green from malachite, blue from azurite, or a small jar with a deeper sky. Pigments touch wet plaster and wake into tone. The wall takes them in and keeps them. After a pause, lines become a branch, a fold, a gentle halo, a stream flowing behind a figure who is more human than saint. Here, holiness is rest, and rest is holiness. The painter steps back, lets the surface breathe, and leaves the day's portion to set. You think of how fresco permits no revision once the plaster cures. It invites the sure gesture, the steady hand. It rewards attention. The surface dries to a matte glow that the room itself seems to exhale. Not far from the villa, a path turns toward a monastery set like a quiet thought on a hill. Stone walls gather into a square, and a campanile rises from within the cluster. The tower leans into the sky as if speaking softly to it. Through the gate, a cloister unfolds. Archers walk the perimeter around a small garden of herbs and grass. Footsteps find their old cadence here without instruction. Even the light seems to step evenly from column to column. In the garden, rosemary holds the shape of hedges, and lavender keeps bees busy in polite circles. A fig tree stands near the corner of the walk, throwing a careful shade that drifts with the hour. The air smells of lime from the walls and green from the leaves. Along one side, a refectory pauses between meals. Wooden tables are laid out plainly, benches pushed under. Bread is cut with a care reserved for blessings. A clay pitcher waits at the edge, its surface cool to the touch. The small chapel keeps a tempered quiet. Frescoes along the walls still carry their colour. Not brilliant, not faded, but settled. A blue deep as evening holds the ceiling. A border of vine frames a doorway in a language older than speech. In a room nearby, books keep their gentle order. Shelves of wood, a ladder, a table near the window. A volume lies open under linen curtains, and a twig of laurel holds a place. Knowledge is kept here as a garden, tended by slow hands. You stand beside a window and look out at the hill that falls into the next valley. The campanile makes its hour. The bell's note rises plain and clean and walks across the fields. The sound enters through stone, rests along beams, and passes on with grace. Time here is measured by light and by that calm metal voice. It gathers work into portions, moves the day without pushing it. The bell does not command, it reminds. Art and use leaf side by side. In the cloister, a small apothecary keeps jars labelled in round script: chamomile, fennel seed, bay leaf, mint. A strainer leans against a shelf and a kettle waits on a low hearth. Relief here is a practice. On a bench, a basket of herbs, sage, rosemary, a handful of lemon verbena, waits for hands that know what to do. A book of receipts lies open to a page that reads like a poem of simple remedies. The paper holds the weight of the years lightly. Outside the cloister, the town is another layer of this piece. Narrow streets, stucco warmed to apricot and soft rose, shutters painted a green that looks like shade. The piazza holds a fountain at its centre and longer conversations at its edges. Laundry lines cross small courtyards like soft geometry. A cat selects a stair warmed to the shape of rest. A child carries a loaf wrapped in paper, and the paper takes its heat with dignity. Everything moves at a speed that understands evening. At the square, the campanile lifts again. A single, distinct note lands on water in the fountain, on tiles on the top of your head. You look up as if to see the sound, then let it pass through. The hour relaxes into itself. In a side street, a door opens to a ceramic studio. Shelves hold bowls and jars, their surfaces carrying the print of a hand. On a wheel, a cylinder climbs under steady palms and then flares into a jar. The lip is shaped with a careful pinch, and a breath held for the moment of decision. Clay rests, then enters the small kiln. It returns with a new voice, a terracotta tone that matches roofs outside. A soft glaze melts into sheen, not loud, not dull, only honest. Next door, weaving claims the afternoon. A loom stands near a window. Thread runs between beam and beam like a calm river. The shuttle passes, the comb beats, and cloth appears in patient inches. Not far, marbled paper swims into being. A shallow tray of size becomes a sky for colour. Drops spread, a comb draws channels, a fine reed drags the surface into feathers. A sheet lands on the pattern, drinks its river light, and lifts with a new skin. You follow a lane that returns to the villa. On the wall, a small shrine holds a painted Madonna whose colours have softened to kindness. Fresh basil sprigs stand in a jar at her feet. Not a display, only continuity. Evenings favour the loggia. A table waits with a board, a knife, a heel of bread, a dish that glows shallows of oil, a handful of figs. Air carries a thread of laurel and a memory of sun-warmed stone. Below the terrace, nets have been folded and stacked. Wooden ladders lean lightly against the wall, rungs polished by long use. Tools live near the door, where the day can find them without fuss. The mosaic worker returns. holds a square to the light, then presses it into the curve of a vine. A small adjustment, a breath of space between pieces, and the curve learns to sing in silence. Some work is finishing, some is beginning, all of it belongs. In the fresco room, the wet wall keeps a slow shine. The painter's fingertip touches the surface and reads it like a pulse. Pigment meets plaster. A dull note becomes a clothed shoulder, then the shadow under a chin, then a background of green that carries the figure the way fields carry a farm. Work ends when the day tells it to. Intonaco lasts as long as it lasts. The painting obeys that boundary. Tools clean easily. The wall will keep and keep, and the room will carry that steadiness forward. Your short walk brings you back to the monastery hill. The bell tower stands close enough to count the courses of its stone. You can see the seam of repairs and the places where moss has claimed a line. Age here is less a number than a texture. Up a narrow stair, landings offer small windows that look to roofs, then to fields, then to the slow hem of the sea. The town repeats in wider patterns. At the top, the bells rest on their beams like calm animals familiar with sky. Metal shaped long ago, cast with care, tuned by ear. When lifted, the sound knows its path. It leaves the tower as a gift sent home to everyone who has ever looked up at it. You return to ground level and touch the cloister wall. Stone holds warmth it does not need but does not refuse. A lizard claims a sunlit patch and lets your shadow pass without concern. At the edge of town, a small mill turns grain to flour. Millstones revolve with even dignity. A sack grows full. A knot ties with competence. A line in a notebook marks the weight. Flour drifts, not as cloud, but as a fine mention of work. A carpenter fits a dovetail on a bench near a window. The piece slides into place and holds without argument. A curl of wood falls to the floor with its own quiet spiral. Tools return to their hooks, not because order is enforced, but because the hand desires it. At a boat shed beside a slow canal, ribs and planks take their curve. The hull copies the shape of water as if remembering a conversation. Varnish warms the wood until it looks like honey in shade. By late afternoon, the vineyard cools into silver edges. A pergola shades a corner where a small table stands. 2 glasses, a plate, a knife. Grapes are cut and tasted one by one. The knowledge of the year arrives on the tongue, and a nod confirms what the hands already knew. Back in the cellar, a thief draws wine into the slender glass tube. A small pour, a sip, and the words that follow are gentle. A little more time, or just right. Barrels remain untroubled by either answer. The olive room returns to silence once more. Press beams rest. The millstone waits. Baskets take their place on a shelf. The floor keeps the darker circles where baskets once dripped green light. As evening folds, the villa's windows receive the sky. Geraniums hold small flames of red. A cat settles in the step's exact curve. Somewhere beyond the fields, the bell gives the day its last number. You lean on the parapet and let the hour enter your ribs. The note is clear, the line of it long. It travels over the hills you walked in the afternoon and returns as calm. What is made here persists by attention. Rooms collect fresco and shadow in equal parts. Floors hold mosaics that have learned to be furniture. Tools embody humility and skill. Food keeps the shape of place and season, and wine speaks the memory of slope and stone. A quiet library keeps its air. 1 window, 1 table, the smell of linen and paper and time. A pressed flower marks a page about a hill you've seen. Geography becomes home when culture answers it. A final walk through the cloister offers the evening's last details. Lavender dimming to grey. A small lamp lit near a door. The sound of pages turned, not for study now, but for rest. The garden, neat and tired, receives the first star. In town, shutters close with slow certainty. Chairs lean against walls in shapes that say we will return. The fountain gives back the sky in prints of silver. The campanile takes a breath and lifts the hour once more. You pause by the mosaic table. 2 blue tesserae lie apart from the dish. Their places are obvious, and yet they will wait until morning. The work honours light as its first tool. At the fresco wall, the day's painting has passed beyond correction. Pigment sits in plaster as fruit sits in jam, held and bright. Tomorrow will bring a new section of wet and the same quiet courage to meet it. In the olive room, amphorae stand like a line of elders. Each carries a season. Each knows it will be poured with gratitude. The first oil shines, the last oil deepens. Nothing is lost, only transformed and shared. On the terrace, a simple supper. Bread, oil, salt, a few almonds, a slice of fig. Wine in low glasses catches a small star. Voices settle into a curve of conversation that never needs to rise above the evening. The bell sounds again, from a farther tower this time. Different tone, same clarity. It threads the valley, touches the river, pauses with owls in the cypress and moves on. You track it, not with ears alone, but with breath. Shade loosens from the loggia. Tiles release their last warmth. The villa relaxes back into the hill as if placing itself in a familiar bed. Even its shadow seems to know which angle belongs to night. What lingers is not display, but habit. The habit of careful making, of rooms that lift their faces to the sun and their shoulders to the wind, of gardens that answer seasons, of bells that carry the day like a gentle ledger. You think of hands brushing plaster, hands sorting tesserae by tone, hands testing grapes, hands tying knots in cool, flower-scented air, hands that rarely hurry and often rest on stone in the space between tasks. The monastery keeps its calm watch at the margin. Cloister, chapel, library, garden, all within a square that holds time in modest measure. The campanile set in stone like a bookmark. The bell, a voice that can be trusted. From the villa to the town to the cloister, a single lesson continues. Beauty here is a form of steadiness. It does not insist, it abides. It is built into thresholds, woven into cloth, glazed onto clay, pressed into oil, taught by the sound of a bell moving through an open sky. You step back into the courtyard, and the fountain is still drawing its circle. Lemon leaves darken to a deeper green. A low wind writes its line through rosemary. The house is ready for a night of keeping what the day has given. Later, the moon lifts and mosaics gather a faint light of their own. Fresco blues deepen. Gold leaf softens into amber. Amphorae cast long, rounded shadows that look like caretakers. Nothing is urgent. Everything is sure. A final glance toward the tower, and then toward the vineyard's rows. Both hold their lines. Both have their answers. The bell will call again. So will the vines. Each call will arrive softly and find you ready. This is the whisper the land and its people share. A legacy of warmth laid down in stone and clay, in leaf and water, in attention and patience. You walk in it now as in a room made of time. When you close your eyes, the bell reaches you once more. One calm note carried across roofs and orchards, across tiles, fields and quiet water. It does not wake you, it accompanies you into rest. The culture you traced in stone and colour opens into the present. Craft becomes routine, ritual turns into habit, and the day arranges itself in a gentle sequence. The same light that gilds fresco and mosaic now finds bread, fruit, and faces. Morning comes as a soft unveiling. Shutters tilt, courtyards stir, and small doors open into lanes still cool from the night. You walk with the first warmth, and the town meets you at an easy pace. At the edge of a small piazza, the market gathers itself. Canvas awnings rise like pale wings and cast clean rectangles of shade. Crates appear from the backs of vans and from wagons, set down with a care that looks practiced and kind. The air smells of fresh bread, its crust golden and crisp under paper. Loaves rest on wooden boards, scored and marked with the baker's small stamp. Some are round and dark, some long and pale, each one a promise of warmth carried forward. Cheese takes its place along a counter lined with linen. Wheels of pecorino and cow's milk. Thomas sit shoulder to shoulder, their rinds brushed to a soft bloom. A fresh ricotta holds the shape of its basket, damp and luminous and ready to be lifted into a small bowl. Ripe tomatoes pile in a low pyramid that seems to shine from within. Their skins are taut and smooth, ridged here and there, and the scent of vine clings to your palm when you test their weight. Nearby, basil pushes small, brave leaves into the morning. Vendors speak in the tone of people who know each other well. Names are remembered, preferences are understood. A half kilo of this, a quarter of that, a handful of leaves to finish the evening dish. You take a paper bag into your hand and it warms just slightly against the bread inside. A wedge of cheese wrapped and tied with cotton string fits the other hand. Tomatoes go into a basket lined with a cloth that smells faintly of soap and sunlight. Across the square, a stall displays olives in wide bowls, the surface broken by the occasional lemon peel or sprig of myrtle. The olives hold a shine that suggests the mill not far away. You taste one, then another, and choose a small portion, not out of hurry, but preference. The coffee bar opens its door onto the market's edge. A marble counter keeps its cool as cups rest for a moment before being claimed. Sugar stands in a jar, spoons lie in a shallow tray, and a bowl of lemon peels waits to freshen the hand. You lean a forearm on the bar and watch the day begin at close range. Nothing is rushed. People greet, nod, lift a cup, and share a sentence about the hour, the light, the basil's fragrance. The barista's motions are methodical and smooth, shaped by an uncounted number of mornings. A baker arrives with a basket to deliver to the cafe. 2 loaves, a few rolls, a small flatbread. The exchange is quiet, practiced, almost ceremonial. One hand gives, another receives, and the space between them seems to hold the town's trust. Back outside, you follow the flow as the market settles into itself. A flower seller arranges stems in short jars. Pale carnations, a handful of chamomile, small sunflowers that look like a row of friendly faces. Even the flowers seem to understand that this is a place for calm. Laundry appears like flags of private weather between buildings. A line runs from shutter to shutter and holds white shirts, striped towels, a child's dress the colour of peaches. They lift and settle gently, translating the air into a simple language. Above a lane, a grandmother draws a rope to bring the line near. Clothespins click into position and then pause, their work complete. She looks down with a smile that requires no explanation, and you lift a hand in return. The town's artisans open their doors as the market continues. A leatherworker's bottega sits in a cool ground floor room with a single window. Inside, hides hang in soft arcs, chestnut, sand, black, each with a grain like a quiet landscape. On the workbench, patterns rest under a brass weight. An awl, a bone folder, and a row of thread spools stand at attention. You watch a hand score a line with the lightest pressure, fold the edge back, then press it into a clean crease. Nothing fights the material decides its own right angle. Stitching begins with 2 needles and a length of waxed thread. The rhythm is even, and the seam closes with a grace that seems inevitable. Edges meet in a quiet join. A strap takes form. A buckle waits on the bench with dignified patience. The leatherworker lifts the piece to eye level and slides a finger along the edge. A burnisher follows, warming the surface until it rounds and gleams. A belt becomes a belt not at once, but over a sequence of considered gestures. Next door, a ceramic painter lays out bisque on a cloth, white forms that look like blank pages. Bowls, plates, a small amphora, each one ready for a first mark. The brush is narrow and the paint thick with mineral colour. Cobalt touches a rim and becomes a ring that holds the piece together. A leaf pattern begins with a stem you might miss if you weren't watching, and then grows into a vine that knows exactly how to turn the corner of a plate. The painter pauses, breathes, and lays a second colour beside the first. No fuss, only balance. A tray of finished work waits for the kiln's second heat. Glaze will quiet the surface, deepen the blues, bring a soft brightness to the greens. The room smells of water, clay dust, and the kind of attention that makes time feel generous. Midday widens. The market thins to a gentle afterimage. Empty crates stacked into neat patterns, a few late shoppers choosing apricots by touch, the fishmonger washing a board with steady strokes. The piazza breathes out and receives the hush that follows good work. Shutters draw a little closer across windows. You pass a doorway where a table is set for lunch. A cloth with a pale stripe, 2 plates, a small bowl of oil holding a circle of gold in its centre. Bread rests under a towel, and a sprig of rosemary marks the day. Cats find their chosen rectangles of shade. A bicycle leans against a wall and waits like an obedient thought. In this quiet, the details feel brighter. The ring of a key on a hook, the cut of light across tiles, the thin fragrance of basil from a pot on a sill. You carry your market finds up a narrow stair. In a small kitchen, tomatoes meet a shallow bowl and part into generous slices. Oil folds across them, then a pinch of salt, then torn basil that darkens where it lands. Bread follows, and cheese, and a glass of water that catches the room's light. After lunch, the day rests. A nap is not obligation here, but agreement. You sit by a window and let the courtyard do what it does. Hold a patch of sky, sway a fig leaf, welcome a thread of breeze through laurel. In the early afternoon, a seamstress reopens her small shop. A dress form stands by the door, and lengths of fabric lie stacked in quiet gradients. Cream, pale blue, a soft green like olive leaves turned in light. A tin holds pins that look like a spill of stars. She threads a needle and smooths a hem against the table. Stitches follow, each one the same length as the last, each one a decision. A whisper of steam lifts from an iron and settles cloth into the shape it was meant to remember. Farther along the lane, a bookbinder sets a stack of pages under a press. Paper holds the faint scent of linen and the weight of words not yet arranged. Boards are cut to fit. A spine takes glue. A strip of leather is marked for small, encouraging lines in gold. Children return to the square as the heat loosens. Their play moves in soft arcs. They know which corners keep the best shade. A ball finds a gentle rhythm against a low wall, and even that rhythm feels like part of the town's breathing, not an interruption. A barber places a chair on the threshold and sweeps with unhurried strokes. A neighbour leans in the doorway with folded arms and speaks about figs colouring on the sunny side of the orchard. Hands move to illustrate branches, not to insist on anything. Along a balcony, more laundry appears. A row of pillowcases, a dress patterned with olives, a man's shirt whose cuffs are turned back to admit air. The line is pulled taut and then released a little so each piece has its space. Cloth answers the day with a mild accord. A delivery cart moves along the lane with crates of mineral water stacked like a neat game. Bottles catch the light from 100 angles. The driver lifts a hand to a boy perched on the step, and the boy returns the greeting proudly, as if entrusted with the town's welcome. At the ceramic studio, the kiln rests but still holds a hush of warmth. The painter opens the lid and peeks inside as if checking a sleeping child. The blues have deepened. The greens find a new roundness. The white field has gone from chalky to skin smooth. Pieces are placed on shelves in a simple arrangement that looks like a conversation between forms. A large bowl sits near a small cup and seems to make room for it. Rows align not in perfect lines, but in the way of people who like standing together. A leather bag hangs on a hook. Completed, it seems clean, and its buckles shining like a small moon. The hide holds the memory of hand and tool and bench, not only of animal and field. It will carry a lifetime in simple arcs and casual wears, and in time will look more itself, not less. The afternoon thins the crowds to a kindly few. An elderly couple occupies a bench under the plane trees and watches light step down the piazza. Their hands rest easily together, not clasped, only touching at the edges as if both were remembering something excellent and calm. Small plates appear at cafe tables, a wedge of cheese tucked against a heel of bread, a dish of olives, a few almonds, a slice of tomato that looks like a stained glass window held in the sun. A carafe of water sweats lightly on the table and offers a shade of green to the glass. Students drift through in pairs, a book under the arm, a folded jacket over the shoulder. Their steps slow as they enter the square, as if the stones ask for a respectful pace. A greeting is offered, returned, and absorbed by the air. Long shadows begin to lay themselves across the paving. The campanile considers the hour and gives it without flourish. The note crosses the open space, touches faces, and moves on to the hills where it becomes part of the light. You walk the perimeter slowly. Each building wears the day differently. Stone warms to honey, stucco leans toward apricot, shutters cool into deep green. Windows hold small arrangements. One lemon, one book, one vase with a single stem that feel like complete sentences. At the fountain, a girl tilts a cup and lets water find it. She drinks in small, even sips, and looks up through the surface at the sky. Nearby, a man reads a newspaper with quiet concentration and turns the page without breaking the stillness. The leatherworker emerges and stands in the doorway with a cloth over one shoulder. He looks at the sun's angle as if it were part of his schedule, which it is. A neighbour passes and they exchange a sentence about the evening. The breeze, the moon's timeline, the distinct sweetness of late summer. A small grocery just off the piazza puts out a crate of tomatoes not taken in the morning. They glow with a patience that suits the hour. Basil wilts a little on the stem, as basil does, and in that softening you feel dinner drawing near. In an upper window a woman waters a pot of rosemary and thyme. The water circles the roots and is lost to the soil. She presses a fingertip into the surface, decides it is enough, and rests the pot back onto its saucer with a satisfied nod. A tailor, who has kept his jacket on a hook for the warmth, fetches it as the air cools. He folds the door half closed and lingers with a friend on the threshold. The conversation leans toward recipes and gardens, not news. Someone wheels a bicycle across the piazza with a loaf of bread tied to the rack. A small paper bag rides in the basket, heavy in a promising way. You recognise the gentle choreography: market, work, pause, and now the beginning of dinner. In a lane where the light spills like a long ribbon, an elderly woman sits on a low chair and snaps the ends off green beans into a bowl. Another bowl sits ready for the trimmed beans, and a wise look passes between the two bowls when she pauses, as if they know they are working together. Cats drift back into the picture. One settles near a doorstep, another under a bench. They blink at the lengthening shade and resume their patient study of lives that will never need explaining. The ceramics painter takes a walk around the square, hands empty now. She carries the day with her, the concentration, the heat of the kiln, the satisfaction of lines that went where they should. Every now and then she looks up at the bell tower and smiles as if greeting a colleague. A shoemaker in another street, one you haven't walked yet, polishes a pair of shoes on a low stand. The leather takes the polish and returns a softened shine. His shop is the size of a generous closet, and his work lives in the signature curve of a toe, the angle of a welt, the way a lace falls and lies. Not far away, a woman arranges fresh mozzarella into shallow bowls and drips a little oil over each, then a few pinches of salt. You recognise this as a kind of blessing. Food in this town does not pretend, it reveals. Late afternoon reaches that clarity it keeps for itself. Blue turns deeper, gold grows richer, shadows draw their lines and hold them. Children pass through as if shepherded by light alone. People begin the passeggiata, a slow circuit of the square and its streets, taken without a task in mind. You join them. It is a way of saying to the day, "We noticed you. We walked with you. We are still here." You turn a corner and find a balcony crowded with geraniums. A grandmother sits beside them and shells peas into an enamel bowl. Her granddaughter leans on the rail, watching a flock of swallows draw lines the sky enjoys reading. In the bar at the corner, a handful of friends claim their usual table. They speak about gardens, a nephew's first job, a neighbour's new puppy, the taste of last year's oil compared to this one. Hands move to measure differences, eyes rest on the square while voices do their easy work. At the fountain again, a young couple sits with knees nearly touching. They share a small dish of cherries and place the stones in a neat group between them. They look outward often, not inward, as if wishing to add their quiet to the town's reserve. The campanile marks another hour. and the note seems to take longer falling across the square. The day will not hurry itself into evening. You feel, standing here, that life is made of this, of waiting without strain, of moving without drama, of holding small things up to the light. Shops close in a rhythm that pleases the eye. One shutter, then another, each finding its hinge with a familiarity you can trust. A last broom comes out, then a last brush. The shopkeepers look down, then up, then lock the door. Laundry now glows faintly. White shirts taking on the sky's silver, darker cloth cooling to a tender shadow. A breath of air turns a towel into a small landscape of folds. The line dips and rises, the cloth accepts. You find yourself back at the artisan quarter, where the leather worker hangs tomorrow's patterns on a peg and covers the bench with a cloth. He lifts a finished bag from its hook and sets it in a box lined with paper that carries a scent of cedar. The box itself looks pleased to be part of this. At the ceramic studio, pieces arranged on shelves make their own fresco of forms. The painter writes notes in a small book, then draws a vine from memory that is not memory at all but practice. The page shines with wet ink that will dry into a useful thought. A final turn through the market square reveals its simple bones. Awnings folded, tables stacked, a single crate left behind and quickly reclaimed. The piazza returns to its original purpose as an open room with a good floor. Supper begins in many kitchens at once. Olive oil leans into pans, water answers with small respectful bubbles, bread yields to a knife and becomes many pieces of itself. The town's scents rise in soft layers that you can walk through and name. On a terrace above, a family sits at a table set with plain plates and a bowl of tomatoes dressed simply. Someone breaks a loaf and passes it to the right, and then back to the left, and there is a sense of order that is not strict, only fair. The sky softens and the first star appears between the threads of laundry stretched across a narrow street. You look at it through a shirt sleeve and it becomes a small constellation. The sleeve lifts, and the star returns to itself. People drift to the piazza again after supper. The day is long enough for another circuit, another bench, another conversation that carries no end in sight. Children slow, dogs rest behind ankles, elders take the seat with the best memory of evening. A musician in the corner sets his instrument on his knee but does not begin. He looks at the square as if it were a score to be read before a note is played. You are content that he may never play at all tonight. The town, in a sense, already is music. Gelato appears in small cups and conical wafers. Flavours lean toward the season: peach, lemon, almond. A spoon dips. A smile follows. Hands steady the napkin at the base of the cup. Even sweetness seems to understand restraint. The tailor, who earlier spoke of recipes, now joins his brother on a bench. They sit shoulder to shoulder and study the lamplight on the fountain surface. Words pass between them that you do not need to hear to understand. A cluster of teenagers claim a corner of the steps, their talk a gentle weaving of plans that can wait until tomorrow. A teacher passes and raises a hand, and they return it with the light of recognition. Future and past share a comfortable seat here. You step to the fountain and rest a palm on its stone rim. Coolness rises through the stone into your hand. The paving at your feet holds the day's last heat and releases it without rush. Everything is in conversation. The bell gives the hour again. It seems to highlight the edges of rooftops, to draw a line from Campanile to the far ridge, to show you the shape of evening as if underlining it. The note meets the laundry answers by lifting a little, and then all grows still again. At the margin of the square, a newsstand pulls in its few remaining papers. A child counts the coins left in a small dish and arranges them into shapes that only she knows. Her mother observes and leaves the shapes as they are. Across the way, a man oils a bicycle chain with a cloth and a dropper. He works in the thin wedge of light near his door and stops when the cloth looks like it has done its work. The bicycle leans differently now, as if more content. You look up and see window frames holding small domestic scenes. Someone sets a basin in a sink and tips water into it. Someone shakes out a cloth and folds it back. Someone turns a plant pot just a little toward the streetlight. The town reveals itself in these entries, footnotes of a day well lived. Your path takes you through a side street where a grocer's window holds a pyramid of eggs. Above it, a line of laundry hangs low enough to touch if you wished, but you do not. Respect here is a quiet thing with edges like good linen. On a corner, a young potter has set 3 small bowls on a stool to watch how they take the night air. He crouches, considers, then turns one slightly to the left as if to expose it to a more honest moon. You nod to him as if he were placing stars. By the church, a door stands open to a small sacristy garden. Pots of basil and lemon trees in terracotta tubs compose a private piazza. A bench waits for late prayers that are more like thank yous than requests. The bell in the campanile lifts 1 more hour to the sky. It belongs to everyone and to no one, and it names nothing but the time, which is enough. You let the tone pass through you and notice how it leaves space, not echo. The passeggiata narrows and returns people to their homes. Chairs tilt in beside tables. Shutters adjust to a narrower angle. The last cup is washed and inverted. A sense of closure writes itself across the square with a gentle hand. You walk home along a line of stones that know your step. The walls keep their warmth a moment longer, then surrender it to the air. The stairs welcome the day's final ascent. Through an open window, a laundry line sways lightly and then rests. A breeze pauses, as if to read the shirts, towels and sheets, and you imagine it nodding in approval. The cloth and the night make their own treaty. On your table, the last tomato sits with a sprig of basil in a small dish. Tomorrow's breakfast appears almost by itself. A slice of bread, a drizzle of oil, a thought of salt. You consider the market's return with the calm of someone who knows it will come. The town exhales. Every craft is put away with care. Every tool has a spot. Every habit knows its bed. The piazza holds the weight of the day as if it were made to do nothing else. You linger at the window and take stock of the quiet. The fountain's surface reads the sky like a page turned slowly. The campanile stands with a composure it has kept for centuries. The life below, above, around continues. A thread with no knots, woven by the hands you met this morning. Tomorrow will bring bread again, and cheese, and tomatoes that smell faintly of vine. The leather bench will hold another piece of carefully cut hide. The ceramic brush will return to its rim and trace its calm patterns. The piazza will discover new shadows to lay across the stones. For now, the rhythm has lowered itself to rest. Laundry settles on its line. Cats take their last short walk. Shutters find their final angle. You place the day where it belongs, on the gentle shelf of memory, within reach and without weight. The bell waits. The square waits. The town waits, not with impatience, but in a posture of ease. You join it, and the quiet takes you in. Evening loosens the weave of the day. The piazza grows gentle again, stone, light, a few last voices taking the long way home. Shutters settle to half angles. A fountain holds the dimming sky like an open book. You keep the days quiet with you as you leave the square. A lane lifts toward the fields, narrow and familiar, edged by time and a run of pale stones that still remember the sun. Cypress stand along the ridge like thoughtful marks, not sentries, but notes in a calm margin. A vineyard terrace waits where the slope eases. No gate, only a low wall and a worn step that guides the foot. Vines fall away in tidy rows, their leaves keeping the last threads of gold at their edges. Beyond, the hills lie folded and complete, each one answering the next with an older, softer shape. A small table rests in the corner by a terracotta pot of rosemary. The stone under your palm gives back the day in a slow radiance. A glass sits within reach. It feels cool. It feels sufficient. Nothing more is required. The sun slides toward the rim of the country. Colour gathers and thins in the same breath. Peach to rose to a gentle apricot that touches everything without insisting. Long shadows stretch over the warm soil and slow the hillside to a whisper. You breathe, and the place breathes with you. Vines move in a quiet conversation with the air, turning their silver undersides and then their deeper greens. The rows guide the eye across distance, then place it tenderly at the horizon. A farm track crosses the slope like a ribbon of dusk. Stakes tilt and correct each other, as if sharing balance between old friends. The earth holds itself, confident and kind. A moth visits, pale and brief, then carries the moment away. From the rosemary, a clean thread of scent wanders over the table and settles near your wrist. The smell belongs to evening. You sip water. It reads the sky in the glass, then smooths the chest as it goes. The touch feels like an agreement to rest. Clouds, thin as gauze, collect the last pink. Hills deepen by degrees, trading detail for contour, not losing anything, only simplifying. A single star shows early and learns the right place at once. Silence grows a shape. It has texture, the faint hush of grass changing temperature, a leaf releasing what it does not need. A distant bell delayed by the gentle distance between slopes. Each small thing makes space for the next. The sun pauses on the line of hills, then goes. A low ember lingers at the horizon and holds while the sky behind you enters lavender. In the middle, the air settles into a softer quality. You recognize the feeling as completion. You stay until the stone under your hand releases the last of its warmth. Shadows knit the rows together, turning the vineyard into a single kind field. When you rise, the terrace keeps your shape in its memory for a moment, then returns to stillness. The path bends down toward water. Olives accompany you. Trunks that have learned grace through time, leaves catching what little light remains and giving it back in shy flashes. Laurel leans along a wall, and somewhere below a line of mast gathers itself out of the sky. Sea reaches you first as a scent. Salt and a clean mineral edge, with a distant hint of lemon from a balcony you cannot yet see. The harbour lies around the next turn, a pocket of calm sewn neatly to the coast. Stone meets water in a shore line. The colour has shifted to a deep, forgiving blue that keeps its counsel. Fishing boats return in a slow procession, one by one, each with a small lamp that extends itself along the surface in a soft, trembling path. Voices move across the water in careful strands. Greetings belong to the people who share them and to the town that understands their weight. A rope passes from hand to hand. A hull sighs against stone and knows it is home. Nets come up in gentle folds. They fall back into their circles, not tossed but placed. Coils of rope become sleeping shapes on deck. Every motion seems to understand the hour and meet it accordingly. Along the quay, lanterns wake at reasonable distances. They offer light that accepts the dark instead of pushing it back. Shadows settle in the right places, under benches, along the base of the wall, beside a stack of clean crates. A gull stands at the edge of the breakwater and watches the water find itself again and again. It adds to the quiet simply by remaining. Reflections gather under the lamps, then lengthen and wander out where the harbour opens to the wide night. From a balcony above, a woman waters a potted lemon and takes her place at the rail. She lifts a hand toward the last boat, and someone on board returns the gesture with a small shore wave. No urgency, only completion. Beyond the breakwater, the horizon becomes a neat seam. Sky and sea accept each other's tone. Stars appear as if stitched by an unhurried hand, a few near the mast tops, more over the headland, then a patient scattering out to sea. You walk to the harbour mouth. The stones there hold the day in thin bands that you recognise by feel more than sight. The water beyond lies dark and even, large and intimate at once. Boats return, then rest. The sea keeps the secret of how far they went. The pier keeps an old rhythm, footfalls that call nothing to attention, only locate themselves among other footfalls gone ahead and others still to come. You find that rhythm easily and let it carry you back along the quay. The path to the old stone is inland and slightly uphill. It passes under figs and over a patch of thyme that answers your step with a small release of fragrance. Night comes willingly here. guided into place by soft terraces and the memory of long days. The amphitheatre waits in its hollow, ringed by olive and grass. Arcs of seating rise in a simple grammar from earth to sky. The ruin has learned to be both structure and landscape, not one more than the other. Twilight finds the stone in its perfect hour. Gold gathers along the curves and then loosens into amber, like a shawl moved from shoulder to chair. In the arches, shadow collects gently and keeps its edges. You descend, heel to toe, along steps worn to the measure of the human foot. The bowl holds your pace and calms it. In the centre, the ground is level and open, an invitation without expectation. Sit where you like. Any seat is the right one. Stone carries a steady warmth in its deeper self and offers it to you without calculation. Your back finds a comfortable angle. The body learns in a moment how to belong. Above, the sky stretches like an oval of clear thought. The first constellations are cautious and precise. They find their places and stop there, content to watch you rest. A swallow makes a last pass and vanishes into a notch. Leaves at the rim of the bowl turn inward, then outward again with a breeze you feel as a small idea on your skin. The ruin does nothing except be itself in time. You trace a softened edge with a fingertip. Stone surrenders to touch without losing its truth. The language here is texture. Dates and names have done their work and receded. What remains is form, light, and the way both find you. In the high arches, twilight slows to its final honey. Grass in the seams is tipped with silver. A single flower, late and quiet, keeps a small colour at the base of a block. The amphitheatre holds all of this without commentary. You close your eyes, curves remain. The bowl, the ring, the strip of sky. When you open them again, the colour has thinned to a tender afterglow, and the first deep blue of night has taken its place. Nothing has been lost. Everything has become simpler. Time here is not counted, but felt. The steps would remember you tomorrow if remembering were needed. The seat would hold you the same way. The arches would continue to teach the air how to move. You stand slowly and follow the upper path that circles the rim. Olive trunks write their vertical lines across the slope. Bark under your hand answers with a story told entirely in touch. Ridged, cool, reliable. From the topmost course, the ruin becomes shape over shadow, a crescent cut neatly into the hillside, a cradle for night. The town lies beyond, a shallow bowl of warm points, each one a room with its own small kindness underway. Farther still, the harbour traces its curve with modest lamps. The vineyard terrace is a dark, kind patch. The little table a remembered rectangle of heat now given back to the air. All three places fit inside the same thought, and the thought receives you. You return along the path that knows every foot it has carried. Figs lean, time breathes, laurel settles. The ground keeps the day's warmth only in the deep places now. The surface learns the cool it will hold until morning. At a small overlook you stop. Rooftops rest like folded fabric. Laundry no longer moves, but it keeps a hint of the sky in its hems, white holding a thread of starlight, blue becoming night's second colour. The clock tower keeps its profile, more presence than instrument. Breath discovers a slower measure without instruction. Inward, outward, a long pause where both ends meet. The day empties its pockets into your hands, a line of rosemary, a curve of net, a polished block, a pale moth, and you set each small thing down on the ledge of memory in good order. The amphitheatre grows dark enough to be part of the hill again. The sea is a plane that has chosen to carry constellations. The terrace now is all outline and trust. Everything has returned to its safest shape. Your way back enters the town by a lane that forgives footsteps. A single window offers its lamp to the street. A terracotta pot holds shadow as carefully as it held soil at noon. An old chair sits just inside a door as if it too prefers to listen. At home, whatever home is in a night like this, a table waits, plain and ready. You leave the glass where it will find tomorrow's light. You stand a moment at the window and take in the arrangement. The highest arch a faint cut in the sky. The stripe of harbour. the imagined rows of vines. They remain in relation as they always do. The pillow keeps the day's sun in a memory of linen, sheets cool to an honest temperature. Your head recognizes the angle without thought. The room asks nothing. Outside, the square quiets to marble and dark leaves. The fountain takes the sky and returns it in smaller pieces. Somewhere beyond, the harbour moves in its careful way, boats settling into sleep they have earned. Close your eyes, and the terrace opens again. Vineyards softened to one dark field, twilight resting in the rose. The harbour returns, a seam of light where lamps meet water. The amphitheatre rises, a curve that holds you gently in its thought. These places can be entered without standing. Breath is the doorway, a slow count is the floor. The body learns quickly, the night knows its work. Stars increase their patient ledger. Hills become the first safe edge of sleep. You have met everything you needed to meet. The rest can be left to the hour. In this quiet corner, twilight keeps its last promise. Warmth recedes to where warmth belongs. The air finds its balance. Your hands, now empty of the day, rest where they are placed. 3 images close together, a glass on stone, a boat at a pier, a seat in old light. They do not compete. They complete one another. Keep them if you wish. Let them go if you prefer. Either choice is a kindness. Let the last colour go. Let the last shape soften. The bell will come again in the morning and find you ready. For now, the country holds you the way the amphitheatre holds night, the way the harbour holds boats, the way the terrace holds the first star. You have arrived at the edge of rest. Stay as long as you like. The land will keep watch. Night has gathered. The countryside is quiet, very quiet. A sky of stars opens above the hills, wide and gentle. The day has finished its work. Everything rests. You rest too. The vineyard lies dark and kind, its rows now a single soft field. Olive trees hold the edges of the slope like calm hands. A light night breeze moves through their leaves. It is a faint rustle, a whisper of silver. The breeze passes and the leaves ease back. Stillness returns, so still. You stand at the window of the old villa looking out. Stone walls keep a steady coolness. The wooden frame holds the night as if it were a picture. The air is clear and mild. It carries a trace of rosemary, a thread of earth, a breath of salt from the far sea. The stars are bright, so bright. You let your shoulders drop. Your breath is simple. In, out. It finds the quiet like a boat finding a safe harbour. The whole country seems to breathe with you. Slow. Even. Sure. You turn from the window and the room receives you. Thick walls, a wide sill, a chair that asks for nothing. The ceiling holds a memory of beams and daytime shadows now put away. A bed waits, made in the good, old way. Sheets smooth and cool. A blanket folded back to welcome you. You sit. You lie down. You are safe. So safe. The pillow lifts your head and carries it without effort. Cotton remembers the sun and offers only comfort. The blanket comes over you and finds the edges it should warm. A weight that is not heavy. A warmth that is not hot. Perfectly enough. Your breath takes a longer path now. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Or in through the nose and out through the nose, if that is easier. Either way, it is gentle. The chest rises, the chest softens and falls, like the sea beyond the hills, like the boats returning to a small harbour and coming to rest. You release your jaw. You let your tongue rest easy. Teeth not quite touching. A small space of peace. The muscles around your eyes loosen, as if someone has smoothed a cool cloth across the brow. The forehead becomes wide, soft, quiet. You feel the scalp relax and give up its small efforts. The temples unfasten their last tightness. Breath flows a little freer. In, out, in, out. You notice your neck, the back of the neck, the sides, the front where breath passes. Everything becomes friendly. Everything becomes soft. The blanket warms the collarbones, the tops of the shoulders. They broaden, then settle. You allow the shoulders to drop into the mattress as if dropping into water. The mattress accepts. It shapes to you. You do not need to shape to it. Your arms are quiet now, upper arms heavy in a pleasant way, elbows at ease, forearms finding their own true length, wrists relaxed, hands open, fingers gently curved as if holding a small, smooth stone. There is no stone, only ease. Your breath finds a rhythm you recognize from the grove outside. Leaves touched, leaves released, in, out, so steady. You notice your chest. It lifts a little like the tide under moonlight. It empties without effort. The heart works with the calm certainty of the ancient walls. Faithful, unhurried, kind. Your ribs move in small waves. They do not ask for more. They have enough. Under the blanket, your belly softens. The muscles there loosen, then loosen again. Warmth spreads there, a slow, deep warmth like sunlight kept in stone and given back at night. The back follows, from the base of the skull down to the shoulder blades, then the mid-back, then the low back. Each area lets go in turn, like gates opening onto a quiet garden. You feel the weight of the body deepen into the mattress. You are held, completely held. Your hips relax. The joints ease. The pelvis feels grounded and safe. Thighs become heavy in a way that feels good, a sweet heaviness. Knees are soft. Calves find their own comfort. Ankle joints slacken. Feet relax. Heels supported. Soles let go. Toes soften, each in its own time. In, out. The breath knows the rest of the route. No rush. A night breeze finds the olive leaves again. Just a brush of air. The leaves answer in their silver whisper and then rest. The countryside answers with quiet. So quiet. The stars drift in their patient order. You drift too. Thoughts slow. They come softer now, like small boats that once touched the pier and have now tied their ropes. A loop, a knot, and then they are still. Each thought has a place to rest. You do not need to guide them. They know. Your breath stays slow. It becomes your only task. In, out, in, out. Simple. You feel the blanket's edge against the wrist, the sheet's coolness on the ankle, the pillow's soft give around the ear. Your face forgets to hold expressions. Your whole face becomes light. Eyes become heavier, even while closed. Lids rest with the gentleness of a soft hand placed over them. The room holds dark like a kind velvet. Not empty, just peaceful. You sense the old villa around you. It has kept many nights. It knows how to keep this one. It keeps you. Stone holds the cool. Wood holds a faint sweetness. The window holds the night, and the night holds the stars. The country is still. So still. Your breath matches that stillness. You do nothing extra. You simply rest. In the distance where hills fold into valleys, the deep silence of the countryside lies like a calm sea. It is a silence that accepts everything and changes nothing. It is the perfect quiet that comes after good work and before soft sleep. You feel the border of waking let go. Edges blur, contours soften. Your body sinks a little deeper. Warm, safe, held. A night breeze, small as a sigh, passes again through olive leaves. So soft, so natural. It reaches the window as a cooler thread of air, then blends with the room and disappears. Everything remains easy. Everything remains calm. Your breath is slower now, longer in, longer out. The out-breath is longer still. It is the body's way of saying, done for today. Your mind hears. It understands. You let thoughts become images, slow ones, a terrace of stone just after sunset. The last warmth turning to comfort under your palm. A small glass of clear water becoming the night's first star. The harbour at rest. Boats that travelled and returned. Small lamps that found their places and stopped trying. A Roman curve in amber. Seats still warm, then slowly cooling. Stone remembering sun and giving back only what you need. These images soften. They stay, then drift. They are good company. They require nothing. You are under a warm blanket in a quiet old villa. You are safe. You are so safe. Your breath is the gentlest wave. Your body is the shore. They meet, they separate, they meet again, without effort, without end. The stars continue their kindly work. They keep their places. They do not ask you to look. They will be there if you do. They will be there if you do not. Your heart slows again, one small step at a time. The body knows the way. The room leans closer as if to keep you from drifting too far. It holds you exactly where you should be. You notice a delicious heaviness from shoulders to toes, the kind you cannot make happen, the kind that arrives when you stop asking. Another breath. The mind settles one shelf lower, then another, lower still. Softness rises from the mattress, from the pillow, from the blanket. It rises like warm water around a stone and becomes a lake. You float without moving. There is no need to move. There is no need to think. If a thought comes, it is gentle. It comes quietly and sits beside you. It knows the hour. It steps back. Your body is ready for sleep. Your mind is ready for sleep. Your breath is sleep. So slow, so kind. You feel the crown of the head grow lighter, the face grows softer, the neck grows longer, shoulders widen, arms rest, hands warm, chest calm, belly warm, back broad, hips safe, legs heavy, feet quiet. The whole of you is at ease. Stillness deepens. The countryside deepens with it. Hills become a single dark shape. The sea becomes a vast tenderness. The sky becomes the softest roof. You are under it. You are safe under it. The olive leaves turn in their sleep and then are still. The breeze rests. The stars continue. Your breath continues. In, out, in, out. Only that. Sleep gathers you from the edges in. It starts with the fingers and toes, then the hands and feet, then the arms and legs, then the torso, then the head. It moves like water filling a quiet basin. It arrives without arrival. It is already here. The villa is a cradle of stone. The bed is a soft boat on a gentle starlit sea. You lie in that boat, perfectly buoyant, perfectly calm. There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. The world is already at rest. You breathe. A little slower now, a little deeper, a little more complete. Between breaths there is a pause. The pause grows. It is spacious. It is sweet. It is sleep coming close. The air is still, so still. The night is kind, so kind. You are warm, so warm. You are safe, so safe. Each breath carries you further into comfort. Each out-breath leaves you lighter than before. You welcome this. You allow it. You fall inward the way a leaf rests on water. No splash, just contact and then gentle drift. Your thoughts are the stars. They are bright, but distant. They watch from far above and do not interfere. They are friends. The body is the earth, warm to the core, quiet on the surface, strong everywhere. The breath is the sea. It makes its soft visits and leaves, over and over, always the same, always new. You are held by the old villa as if by a trusted companion. It has kept night for many before you. It will keep it for you. It will keep it for those who come after. This gives peace. This gives sleep. If the mind lifts, invite it to notice the breath again. In, out, in, out. If it lifts again, invite it to feel the weight of the blanket at the wrists, the ankles, the chest. If it lifts again, invite it to rest the eyes further behind the lids, like shutters closed, like night entering a room built for it. Everything has softened, edges have rounded. The day has dissolved into a fine sweetness. It leaves only what belongs. You drift, deeper and deeper. You do not need to measure it. You do not need to know when it happens. You only need to let it happen. The countryside is silent, so silent. The olive leaves are still, so still. The sky is full of stars, so full. The air is warm where it should be warm, cool where it should be cool, perfectly balanced. Your breathing is slow, so slow. Your body is heavy, so heavy. Your mind is light, so light. You feel the last small muscles release, around the lips, around the eyes, at the base of the skull, between the shoulder blades, at the back of the knees, along the arches of the feet. Each release is a little doorway. Behind each doorway is more quiet. You wander into that quiet as if down a soft, dark hallway. No doors to open, only rooms to rest in. The first room is calm, the second room is warmth, the third room is sleep. You continue, your breath follows, the night follows, all together. Any sounds from outside are far and kind. A breeze in a tree, leaves answering for a moment, then quiet. The sound, if you notice it, joins your breath. It becomes part of the slow rhythm. It helps. Everything helps. Even your heartbeat is a soft friend now, unhurried, reliable. It is the old bell tower naming nothing but peace. You slip under the surface of thought, under and under again. Each layer below is darker and softer. Each layer below is warmer and safer. The body floats without floating. It is held from below. It is covered from above. You are between those two safeties, exactly where you want to be, exactly where you need to be. In, out, in, out. The mind releases attention to the edges of the room. It releases attention to the shape of the bed. It releases attention to the weave of the blanket. It keeps only the breath. And then it releases even that. Breath continues by itself. It always has. You do not need to do it. You only need to rest. A star falls somewhere beyond the hills. You do not see it. You do not need to. It is a sign that everything moves as it should. You are part of that. You are moving into sleep. The last images fade. The terrace returns as a feeling, not a picture. The harbour returns as a calmness under the ribs. The amphitheatre returns as a curve in the body, a perfect cradle made of night. You rest there. You belong there. The blanket is warm, so warm. The pillow is soft, so soft. The room is safe, so safe. The night is quiet, so quiet. You drift and drift and drift. Every breath deepens it. Every breath lengthens it. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to think. Only sleep. Sleep arriving like tide. Sleep staying like stone. Sleep held by stars. Sleep guided by leaves. Sleep wrapped in linen. Sleep in an old villa. Sleep in Italy. Sleep. Deep sleep. Peaceful sleep. Complete sleep. Now. Rest.